This episode is brought to you by Indie Insights. Indie Insights is our bi-weekly newsletter and love note to the film industry, movies, and the creatives that make them, not to mention you, our esteemed listeners. Inside, you'll find curated industry trends, articles, exclusive commentary, and underappreciated films from filmmakers like you worldwide. And the best part is that it is completely free. So join today at www.bonsai.film. It takes just a few seconds. And once you sign up, you'll get the very next newsletter on Friday morning. It's that simple. Go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights, our bi-weekly newsletter, and join a network of film creatives just like yourself. And don't worry, we'll never sell your information or spam you with a bunch of nonsense emails, just the bi-weekly film industry goodness you need. And if you ever tire of Indie Insights, simply unsubscribe. No gimmicks, no games. So go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights for free. You're listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps creatives in film get where they're going faster by sharing the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives across the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
Hello, I'm Charla Lauriston. I am a comedy writer. I am a supervising producer on Grand Crew on NBC. And I just started a new course called The Working Writer, which is a career-focused course for new and aspiring screenwriters.
Charla Lauriston, welcome to the Make It podcast.
Hello. I feel like I said writer 80 times in my intro.
I didn't know. I didn't know it didn't come off as like offensive, as an offensive use of the word. But I've done some writing in my day, and I went to school for journalism, and we were always taught, "Hey, be careful how many times you use an adjective in a sentence, especially in the written word." Now, when you're talking, it's cool. Like we all know a person that says "like" or "really" as their primary, or "very" as their primary adjective for every single thing they're describing.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. which the ear tolerates, but the eye won't. Like if someone wrote that way, and I know you're a big proponent of write how you speak. Yes. But it's like, and I think that's so true. I've always said that. Mm-hmm. But if you're writing and you really want it to, like you want it to jump off the page and you want to keep that reader interested, you do need to like mix up the way you're describing things. If
that was a written intro, I would have edited that intro, but I don't know any other way to say what I'm doing.
I don't either. And you've done a lot more. I mean, you've written for The Last OG, you've written for Why with Hannibal Buress, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. You've had your own web series. You've done a lot of things, and we are going to go through it. But for the sake of time, I'd love to just hop in. We are going to go all over the place in this interview, as we tend to do in the Make It podcast, and try to get sort of a living record of who you are as a person that's extremely evergreen. And I'd love to start at the beginning. You were only 4 years old when your family left Haiti. What do you remember about Haiti, if anything?
I have a very prominent memory of being on a beach. We lived in Saint Louis du Nord, which is like north of Haiti. Haiti's very tiny. It's on the island of Saint-Domingue. I have no idea. I don't know what I'm saying, but it shares an island with Dominican Republic. And we lived in the very tip of the north part of Haiti on the water. So I have a very like beachy, pace of life in terms of my memories. It's just hanging out with family, being with family a lot, being raised in a very like communal, very like intergenerational kind of setting with my grandmother, my aunt, and my uncle and cousins, and that kind of thing. Really great, quiet upbringing.
It's interesting what's going on now with the weather, hurricanes on the DR side. And I don't watch enough news to know whether or not this is being undercovered or not. Do you feel like it's being undercovered or overcovered?
I've read about hurricanes in Puerto Rico. I don't know about the DR, but I do know that what is being covered in Haiti is basically the fall of their society because I'm sorry that I'm laughing.
Sorry, that's not funny. That's not funny.
Sorry, but that's pretty much taken over the news is just ever since the president was assassinated.
Right. Yeah.
Now there are gangs and, people can't get gas, like they can't get their basic necessities. So it's, I feel so blessed all the time that my family moved to the United States, even though we weren't poor in Haiti. We were very blessed in Haiti, or we were well-to-do, but yeah, I'm really blessed to have been brought to the United States by my family because it's just an never-ending sadness in Haiti.
Yeah, it is. Having spoken to folks in Haiti before, just the general belief systems are so foreign to, let's say, the rest of or Western society. It can be actually jarring. But I'll tell you one thing we do this better than anybody on the planet is we just move on from a thing like this. Okay, Haiti's president got assassinated.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's on Netflix?
Right.
Like we would, and then meanwhile, for the last year, this has got to be like a hellscape.
Absolutely.
Going on in Haiti.
I think that's something that, is another privilege of the United States that we don't think about, especially now while our own democracy is crumbling, is that in a lot of places, it is hell on earth. And it is still, people are still immigrating here. There are still migrants here. There are still places where this is 100 times better. This is a world better than where we're coming from, so I try to think about that every time I read the news and see some, excuse my French, fuck shit going on with the Republicans. I'm just like, you know what? Okay, fine. In other places, this is still better than other places.
Yeah, you have a great joke about that where you are shitting on the United States and then you went to India. It's like, actually, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go back.
You know what? God bless America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Praise God. Yeah. But it's true. Yeah. It's hard to remember that there are other places where it is worse because America is not doing what it's capable of right now.
Yeah. We kind of know, we're like a divorced man or woman who in the marriage, like drove around in a Mercedes. And now after the divorce, they're like in a Ford Pinto and they just can't accept the new reality. Like this. No, I know it's possible. I know what's possible. I can't go down in
a divorce.
Yeah. That's kind of how we behave sometimes. It's wild. But we did have an interview with a filmmaker out of Atlanta named Frederick, Emmy award-winning filmmaker, and he talked about doing this documentary over in Greece, where all these kids had gotten HIV in the 80s. Wow. And he was like, you would go to the worst ghetto in America before you would go to their slums. Like, it's not even close.
Wow.
And so that perspective, I'm so glad you said that, because that perspective is meaningful. Did you ever find out, or do you have a good sense of why your parents decided to leave Haiti when they did? They were well-to-do. Do you know why they said bye and moved to the States?
I think there was just a general sense of the States is better. no, even if you are well-to-do. And my grandfather, my dad's father, had a lot of property in Florida, and there was a lot of family already in America before 9/11. Like Haitians could move very easily to America, and a lot of my family immigrated to the US, and I had a lot of family on my dad's side especially who lived in Florida. So it was a really easy transition. My dad went to high school in Florida while he would go back and forth between Haiti and Florida.
Oh,
So
interesting.
Miami specifically. So I had a lot of family in Miami. So when I was about 4, my mom took a shot and made the move over to Miami to be closer to my dad's family. And then eventually we moved to Massachusetts because I had her family, my mom's family, is in Massachusetts.
What has the family support been for your career path? I know there are stereotypes around being an immigrant and the kind of work you should be doing or ought to be doing. You chose to be a comedian, which almost doesn't exist in some places outside the U.S. What has that been like? And if you know, did you get your sense of comedic timing from either parent?
Oh, yeah. I definitely think I got my comedic timing from my dad, who does not think I'm funny, by the way. I remember when I told him I was a comedian, he was like, "Why? You're not funny." And I was like, he's the funniest man I know. He's such a performer. He's so goofy. He's so, he just is someone who makes fun of everything.
Yeah.
I think I get my seriousness from my mom. And like, I think I have a two-sided comedy brain, which one is like very absurd and just always looking at how absurd life is and how absurd cultures are and society is, and not taking it seriously because of that, not really respecting these rules that we create around ourselves for no reason. I think that's how my dad kind of looks at the world. And then I have the other side of my brain, which is really my mom, which is completely humorless, just never really getting the joke. So I think it's created a very deadpan kind of comedy in me. And I would say that my parents have, I don't think my parents have any real reference for what I do. They don't know what I do. They're very concerned. They were very concerned at the beginning whether or not I had health insurance. They were just like, "Do you have health insurance? What is this?" There would be times when I'd be working and when I would not be working. They didn't understand how I could be an adult and not have jobs at certain points, So they're supportive in terms of, I think they know that I have a good head on my shoulders and that I make things happen. If I'll do what I got to do to live the kind of life that I want to live and do the kind of work that I want to do. I think they've seen me struggle a lot because of that, because it's not an easy path and it's not a recognizable path. And also for it to be recognizable, you have to be like on TV. And a lot of times they're just like, you're not on TV, so I don't understand what you do. And my web series was still too sexual for my mom. My mom's very Christian and she just thought it was very sexual and that she didn't like that I swear in my stand-up and things like that. So either way, I think they know I'm very strong-willed. They generally support me. They know I'm not doing anything terrible, but I still don't think they have any real reference for what I do. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, and in your web series, Clinch and Release, which is hilarious, and we'll talk about that later for sure. Genuinely funny. And you had people in that web series that we now know and love, people that are insecure, et cetera, that I saw in the series. So you were a pioneer. This is, a decade ago. I mean, this is something that you were way ahead of the curve on. And it is funny that it's hard to tell a New York experience without being sexual. Like you can't, like there is going to be a guy that's jacking off right beside you.
Yeah.
Like you need to know how to deal with that in New York. And
that's what
I thought the way you wrote that, because you wrote and directed, produced all this stuff, was perfect. It was like your friend in that particular episode was like, this is New York. You don't want to be like in a shitty town where, you know, a person doesn't even have the freedom to pull their dick out. Like this
Absolutely.
is like what makes New York great.
Yeah, I didn't direct that series, and I love that people always think I did, but I had great directors helping me with that series.
You know what? You're right.
Yeah.
There was I have his name in my head right now and I didn't write it down. That directed a lot of them. Can you give?
Yeah, JJ Adler
JJ
directed
Adler.
the second season. Rakesh Barua directed the first season, but JJ has also directed oh my God, what are they called? Astronomy Club on Netflix, which was a Black sketch show that was executive produced by Kenya Barris, and it had a lot of New York comedians as well, people that I came up with who I think are so funny. So there's a connection there, you know, that has continued on years after that project has finished. Yeah.
Shout out to JJ and Rakesh.
Yeah.
For sure. Hopefully they listen to this and
sure.
keep rocking and rolling. You are highly entrepreneurial. Is there a moment that you can remember growing up where you just had made the definitive decision that you were going to live a creative life, for better or for worse?
That's a really good question. I don't know if there was a definitive moment. I think there were many moments. I was a reader growing up. I read a lot of books ever since I was a kid. And I think that instilled in me that the world is very big and that the possibilities are endless, and that it just made me very aware of the fact that where I am, where I live is not it. There's so much to explore. There's such a big world, and I can do whatever I want, truly.
Yeah.
And when I was in college, I just remember the semester before I graduated college, I got a real estate license because I just wanted to work for myself, because I'd been working since I was like 15, you know, and I have I've just always hated working for people. I hate being on somebody else's schedule. And one of the reasons why I started The Working Writer was just to give people a clear understanding of what screenwriting, what TV writing is, because I think there's so much mystery and confusion and shrouded information around what is the day-to-day of a screenwriter? What is the lifestyle like? What are the pros and cons? What do I actually need to know? How do I be successful? I just think there's not enough training. But point of the matter is I just realized that I still have that entrepreneurial spirit and desire to do my own thing. And I think it started young. I think it started early. And I think it started with working so young and so early, and just realizing that you're never really going to get ahead when you're working for somebody else. You just don't.
Yeah. There is a really simple equation to having sort of long-term financial stability, just for example. Mm-hmm. And that is, you have to own stuff. Yeah. And it's just as simple as that. And if, I have a lot of friends that are super smart that, went to college and graduated from the best schools. Vanderbilt is mm-hmm. a ton of my friends from Vandy, which is like Ivy League of the South. Mm-hmm. And they have these serious philosophies around non-ownership of things. And that's cool. Yeah. And that's great because they want to be unencumbered to be able to move to Australia tomorrow, whatever. But you'll always be chasing to some degree if you don't own Absolutely. Something. So on one hand, they don't want to own a house or car or be married, but they will own stocks and bonds and things like that. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you had to own something so that you can do the things you want to do. I think it's a great point. When I was younger, I know that you were called Oreo.
Yeah.
I was also called, we have all these things in common, by the way. I was also called Oreo. Mm-hmm. And it was because my dad's white and my mom mm-hmm. was black. And you were called Oreo because you talk white. Mm-hmm. At least to the people you grew up around. Yes. And you're obviously black. Right. And not that I didn't talk white. I mean, I talk as white as anybody else, I guess, mm-hmm. That would be accused of that. But I started using comedy as a defense mechanism in school so that I could be known for something other than being a biracial kid in the South at the time, which is not a big deal anymore at all, I don't believe. But when I grew up, it still kind of was. Did you kind of cling onto that too, to distract people from your Oreo-ness, if you will, if I can just create a word?
Sure. I love Oreo-ness. I will say, I feel so bad for mixed race kids. Like every mixed race kid I've ever known has had some sort of like psychological like, breakdown about their identity. And I'm just like, you know what? Power to you, find your identity. That's from me to you. Love yourself. You Black. All right. I don't know what it is. Mixed race kid needs. You're Black, you're white. It's great. I think comedy for me was much more of a, not necessarily a defense mechanism, more a attempt to be seen, if that makes sense. Just because I'm such I
get it. Yeah.
Fearful, shy person. But yet I have this desire to tell jokes. I have this desire to put out work, to tell a story, to show people a side of me, you know what I mean, that might be very reserved in person. I think people always describe me as very reserved. A lot of people think that like I don't like them, even though it's like I'm not even thinking about you. I'm like freaking out about my own, like how I'm appearing and how I'm coming off, And I think it's really just this attempt to be seen and to live and to express myself. Like really, that's all I'm trying to do is just not hide. And it's really difficult a lot of the time and it's not easy. And yet I have this compulsion to do it. So I feel like it is my inner self doing its best to come out of its shell and to be seen and to not care about what people might think, So I think it's a very inner thing, if that makes sense. It's like really just my insides trying to connect. Yeah.
I think it's a human thing, not even a race thing at all. Like we all are trying to find the thing that can help us be seen in the world and know that we're alive and significant. When you're young, you do everything you can to fit in. Mm-hmm. And when you become an adult, you realize the trick is to fit out.
Absolutely.
And to differentiate. And I think comedy is such a great way to do it. And if you'd been doing it all the way up, right, getting yourself in trouble in class, and then all of a sudden you get rewarded for the thing you used to get sent to the principal's office for.
Absolutely.
And I do want to report
weird thing
to you
about you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The weird thing about you is what makes you original, and comedy demands originality, and I think it's a beautiful medium, I mean, art demands originality, but
authenticity.
Authenticity. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I have this memory, and I do want to just report to you that I've not had that mental breakdown yet due to
Thank you so much.
biracialness. I've been able to hold it together, but I had to use a lot of.
Thank you so much. Yes.
I had to use a lot of different tricks, Charla. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's been a lot. Like I've had to, be a chameleon. Like, I can dance in any room now.
Absolutely.
I'm moving. I'm flowing back and forth. I'm like a damn ghost. And I do remember being used one time in somebody else's game, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
The funniest kid in our class growing up was a guy named Darnell Scobie. That's already a funny name.
It's a hilarious name.
Big old dude. And his name was Darnell Scobie. And he was trying to talk the young new teacher into dating him. So this is how hilarious this is. We're in class, and this new young teacher, I think her name was Miss Russell. She was probably 23 or 24. So really young, very pretty. And he decides to ask in class during one of the breaks, would you ever date outside your race? And she said, no, I don't think it would work out. And he said, well, I don't understand. Why not? Like, what's wrong with that? And she goes, well, and she thought this was the perfect answer. You could tell that she thought this was the perfect answer. She was like, well, I just wouldn't want that trouble for the kids. And Darnell looked at me and said, Chris doesn't take any flack. Chris, do you take flack? I was like, I don't take any flack for being biracial. And she had to laugh because his game was working.
Yeah.
Maybe he got with her later on.
He's smart.
Down the line. Yeah.
Using you as a pawn.
Used me. I got no pussy out of it. No, I'm just kidding.
No. How old are you, 12?
I got no action. I was a complete pawn in his masterful game of chess. But that was all I can really remember about being biracial specifically, especially from the perspective of like it being like most of the stuff happened to me that I remember was because I come off Black. That was the real thing. The real thing was I had white friends that were calling me the N-word when I walked out the door. That was it wasn't the biracial thing. The real thing was cops see something in your backseat when they pull you over. All of a sudden you stole that.
Yeah.
That can't be your PS1, whatever it was at the time. So that all my bad experiences came from
being Black,
sort of being perceived as Black. The hilarious thing is now we got DNA testing and it turns out I'm like 56% European. I'm like more European than Black.
Of course.
And I think
that means your mother has some European.
Oh, she was like kind of a middle light-skinned Black woman. Of course she did.
Okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, one of my great-grandfathers is a plantation owner. That's all I know.
Yeah.
That's and okay.
Yeah.
I would still love to find out because I'm like a lover of history. I like to find out like what's going on.
You haven't done the 23andMe yet? You haven't done
I was early adopter.
That's how you did the 56%.
Early adopter on that, yeah. Right
but
out the gate.
It doesn't tell you history? Like it doesn't tell you names or anything?
It doesn't tell you names.
I see.
But every day you get closer and closer and closer. And we will hear about someone who got caught having an extramarital affair when somebody takes the 23andMe test and then it shows up that that's their son or daughter.
Okay.
Like, oh God,
I see.
How are you so related to this person? Like that happens on 23andMe. There are people that show up, you've never met them before.
Yeah. And
basically anything over 2% is a significant relationship.
Wow.
That you have.
Wait, it's ancestry.com that tells you the actual names of the
names. Yeah. And I think one day they'll merge.
I see.
Charla. Mm-hmm. And that'll be like one big company that has the DNA background. Like I know what parts of Europe and Africa I'm from, but then they'll combine it with the ancestry and the tree. And right now I get random names of people I'm related to that are like, I see the people I'm related to in my family. That's how you know it's accurate. Because it doesn't know that. It just, until it puts it together with the CRISPR,
that's
right?
Crazy.
Like with the testing, like you don't write in and say, my sister's going to do this test. It knows it. And that's how you can know that it's accurate.
That's crazy.
And I come from a family on my mom's side where my grandmother had 5 baby daddies, 5 children by 5 different guys. So knowing like my line for my mother, which sounds like trifling, but it really wasn't in the South. Like when my grandmother grew up in Tennessee, like, you were struggling, she always, so it wasn't like that. She was basically married to these guys, but you don't get married and they move on and then things happen. So, but it's fascinating. And I think that, I guess my overall critique is through these services like 23andMe and Ancestry, like you mentioned, it has the power to render all sort of racial conversations ridiculous. It does have that power. Because there are going to be a lot of people who think they are a lot of things and they find out they're not at all. Yeah. And they've staked their entire personality and life on it.
Yeah. I mean, if they did any kind of sociology study at school at all, you'd learn that race is a social construct in the first place, and we buy into it anyway.
There it is.
So it's never been real and quote unquote real.
Yeah. I totally. Yeah. You are speaking my language directly. That is exactly my belief system, how I was raised and everything. And it's made my life so simple because I never wanted my skin color to be the first thing in the room.
Good for you.
I hate that idea that like the first thing that you should know about me and the first thing you should appreciate about me is the way I look. No, I'd rather you I'd rather you see my comedy first. Am I witty? Right. Am I funny? Absolutely. Am I smart? Am I, all those kind of things. But I think to a degree we're very superficial as people anyway. But
absolutely.
You did grow up in Massachusetts. We talked about Florida, but you did make that move to Boston, and that made me immediately think of Patrice O'Neal.
Absolutely.
And Patrice is one of the best comics of all time. I think Elephant in the Room is up there with maybe the top 10 best comedic sets ever. Everybody should go watch.
He's one of my absolute favorites, Patrice O'Neal. Okay. Absolute favorites.
Well, he has this thing where he says, I know white people.
Yeah.
I grew up with white people, and it helped, I think, differentiate his comedy. And I was just wondering, can you relate to that? Like, did you grow up in Boston sort of help you find a different, unique voice for a Black female comedian, so to speak? That box they try to put you in,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I've found a different, unique voice, but I definitely understand exactly what Patrice means when he says, I know white people, because you feel so much like Massachusetts is so white. It's like terrifyingly white. You have to do so much you just feel like you stick out like a sore thumb, and you have to do so much to like walk through their world, which basically means that you can't scare them in any real way because they're always terrified of Black people for some reason.
What do you mean by scare them?
I think white people in general, when you go to a really white place, like for instance, right now, my husband and I, we moved to Vancouver. And Vancouver is even whiter than Massachusetts somehow. I can't believe it. And it is, I think they're just afraid of my skin because I'm 5'2". It can get cold. It's pretty mild. It's very Seattle weather, like rainy.
Oh, yeah.
In the wintertime. It doesn't really
I never know what to wear in Seattle.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever you thought you were going to wear, it's wrong.
It's wrong. It's going to rain most likely, but at a random time that you can't predict. But it is just fascinating because, places like Vancouver, places like Boston tout themselves as these very liberal, very welcoming places, and they just don't always live up to that. There are definitely times still to this day where in 2020, we might as well be in 2023. We're so far into the future, and it's unbelievable the prejudice that white people walk around with, just this fear of Black skin. And I have locks now. And, I'll walk into my building in Vancouver and people will like look at me like I'm trying to rob them. Like I can't possibly live here and I can't. Or if I walk into, a restaurant, I'm literally the only chocolate drop in this entire restaurant. You know what I mean? And like, they just look at you and you're just so aware of the fact that your skin color is different because they are so aware and because they are so uncomfortable with your presence. And I've had to do so much to just make myself comfortable, and make myself belong and make myself feel welcome, because I don't think, even especially liberal white people, I think they're very, very unaware of their prejudice and of their own internalized racism and their assumptions about dark-skinned people. To me, it just seems like very old-timey, very ignorant, It just feels like such a anachronistic thing. It just seems like so out of place for the time that we live in, especially for how clearly racist America is in terms of like, now we have numbers. Now we've seen how people have voted. Now we've seen, how much downplaying it over the last hundreds of years, what the effects of downplaying racism and pretending like it doesn't exist. We're paying the consequences of that. I don't even know if that was your question, but Vancouver's white. It's white as fuck, and so is Boston, and it makes me uncomfortable. And you know what? Now I'm getting blacker and blacker every day because now I'm just like, y'all not gonna make me uncomfortable. I'm over it. I'm very tired. I'm very tired.
Hey, amen to that. Yeah, I think it is a mosaic. It's a conflation of a lot of different things that I think came out of the 90s and maybe even out of 9/11. And race is in that mix because we ended up having, Barack Obama in the White House, and I living in the South, I kind of saw some things I'd never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people just lost their mind a little bit, like this temporary insanity around it, like reverting back 200 years. Like the language wasn't even the same. I have this memory of being in a restaurant. I was in college at the time. I remember being in a restaurant, and there was this group of really rednecky looking white guys. Look like like white guys that don't exist anymore. Right. Like I'd never seen them before. Like these are guys, they're sitting way across the restaurant, and they just look like they came right out of the Civil War, just without the uniforms. Right. So imagine that. And one guy with long, scraggly hair, and he's wearing a tank top, the kind that like gets cut so low that you can see his rib cage. And he just slammed his fist on the table and said, "We cannot have black blood in the White House." I was like, I can never imagine hearing a sentence like that in public.
Right.
In public. And I thought, oh man, you know what? I think he actually said the N-word. He didn't say black.
Yeah, of course he did.
I edited it for him.
You're editing it. It's just like, there's no way he said black blood.
Yeah. And I thought about going over there, and then I thought, man, that's just an ass whooping for no reason, because it's 5 of them. It's 1 of me. I'm in school. I'm studying. I didn't hear
nothing's
it.
Gonna
I
come
just
out
like,
of it. Nothing's going to come out. It's not like you're going to change their minds,
Yeah, you're not going to beat them into like progressivism.
Acceptance, yeah. It's just like, nah, these people are lost and they should be gone. They need to go with the wind, but I think that it's a really, really interesting thing that's going on in the United States. All these people who denied that racism was a thing, I actually think people have been living in a made up world the entire time. You know what I mean? Like the entire time when we've had police shootings and all these things, and people pretend like the black person was doing something wrong, or there isn't something structural going on. Now they're just being, I think before those were dog whistles, obviously those were dog whistles. And now they're just having to be honest because they don't like what's going on. And I'm just like, you've been bullshitting the whole time. Now it's just like, all right, now it's for once we're being real. Which
social media makes it at scale. So it makes it easier to see each incident. I do think it's a small contingency of people that yell loudly and get a lot of attention. That's why I think it's a mosaic, because at the same time all that was happening, there was a lot of documentaries about and a lot of movements around banking, around what government is doing, around what big pharma is doing, around what agriculture is doing, around sort of the patenting of seeds and putting farmers out of business. And like, so there is this giant sort of paranoia that was building up and sort of commingling with that presidency, and the outshoot of that was what we have now. So you have like deep distrust, isolation from social media, racism that was always there from that small contingency, because there are a ton of Trump people, for example, that aren't racist or don't view themselves that way. Like they would never say those things I just said. Right. And so we are in a strange time, because a lot of things happened at the exact same time, and they all play off each other in a really toxic, sort of poisonous way. So it's dangerous. We got to be careful with it.
I highly recommend Ta-Nehisi Coates' We Were 8 Years in Power, because it talks about this aftermath of a Black presidency. He talks about like what we're living in now as a backlash, as a white backlash to a Black presidency. And it's really good. Yeah.
In government, and I guess in the military, they call it blowback.
Yeah.
So we're having a little bit of blowback right now.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Midterms are on their way. I do want to turn to your writing and your school a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're quoted as saying, "You are not your thoughts. You have control over your thoughts." And that's a very smart thing and a very Charla thing to say after spending the last 2 weeks living in your world.
Yeah.
In what ways does being part of a writer's room help or hurt the creative process? Like,
Ooh, that's
how
a
do
really
you
good question.
ensure
Yeah,
that your voice is actually heard?
that's a really good question because so much of what gets you hired into a writer's room is having a point of view, is being able to articulate how you see the world, um, and being yourself and being original. That is required when you're in these interviews, when you're talking about the script or the pilot that you saw with the showrunner or the producers or whoever it is that you're in the meeting with. Yet at the same time, being in the room, I think, first of all, like a lot of writers are like on the spectrum. Like a lot of writers are like very, like very in, what is the word? Like, they're very in their heads. Writers are
Yeah,
very
yeah,
in
yeah.
thein heads. Writers can be very anxious. Writers can be
The
very,
world builders, yeah.
we're world builders, so we can be very, we can have a lot of insecurity, you know what I mean? And I'm no different. I really, when I'm in the room, have to focus and pay attention to what's going on because I can easily get in my head about my pitch, about what I just said, whether or not people liked it, whether or not people like me, whether or not I'm smart, whether or not I'm good. And all of that can just be such a distraction, and it's it can create this really terrible internal world, like when you're in the writer's room. At least that's my experience. And I've had very bad experiences in writers' rooms and I've had some good ones. I've had some very, very good ones. For instance, Grand Crew is probably the best writers' room I've ever been in terms of the
That's awesome.
culture. I'm around a lot of Black people. I actually think our conversation about race really fits well into transitioning into writers' rooms because I think writers' rooms are a reflection of the whiteness of the industry and the old timey kind of structures that are patriarchal and racist, in the ways that they find writers, choose writers, hire writers, promote writers, who gets to have a show, who gets to be a showrunner, who gets in access to the information, who gets to sink or swim, or who gets to be supported and encouraged and mentored. You know what I mean? I think there is a lot of work to be done. And I think that the thing that helps the most in a writer's room is having self-confidence in your own voice and being okay with, I think comedy is a really great preparation, stand-up in particular, improv in particular. It's really great preparation for being in a writer's room because you have to be collaborative, you have to work together. It's not about you, it's about the team, it's about contribution. It's not about like, I pitched that and it's amazing and it's getting in. It could get taken out any 2 seconds later. Like the whole story could get thrown out. Like it's really about making the best possible show, helping the showrunner, execute their vision to the highest possible, caliber, as funny as possible, as dramatic as possible if you're making a drama, as dramedy as possible if you're making a dramedy. But it's just, I think that that is what hurts your creativity, is being in your head, questioning yourself, second guessing yourself, having low self-esteem in the writer's room. And then I think what is awesome about the writer's room is the camaraderie. It is the teamwork. It is the group mind. Like when you get into a flow, it is making each other better. I learned so much and get so much from everyone in the room, whether it's the PA or the showrunner, like everybody brings something, everybody contributes. You contribute your energy, you contribute your point of view, you contribute your history. There's so much to share and to connect. It's a really great connecting point. So there's so many positives and negatives, there really are. Yeah.
I can totally agree and see where you're coming from with, or in respect to using the stage as practice for that voice. I watched you do your sort of fried chicken hummus comparison bit probably on 8 or 9 different stages. And you didn't do it the same anytime. Like you were trying out just micro variations of the same bit to see which timing got the best response. And you only can figure that out through those reps. Comedic writing you're in a writer's room. There's a lot of people who they all are confident. They all think they're funny. In our day-to-day work where we are reviewing scripts, one of the easiest ways for a story to fall apart is a shift in tone. How do you ensure one comedic tone for the show to be great with all these comedic styles in the room? Or is that more on the showrunner to make sure everybody kind of has a similar style?
I think it's both showrunner and time. Like, I'm already noticing from the first season of Grand Cru to the second season of Grand Cru, this season it feels like we're nailing down what is funny about our show. And I think it takes comedy shows in general. You know, a lot of people say like Parks and Rec wasn't funny until the second season, and like
Seinfeld for sure wasn't funny.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, it just takes time to get it, you know, to play with it and see it. And it also takes the showrunner having a vision and having a specific POV and taste, you know, and like putting themselves into the show. I think our showrunner, Phil Augusta Jackson, he's so great. He just has such a clear, he's original. He knows what's funny about himself. He knows what he finds funny. He has a lot of fun putting himself into the show. And I think it comes across, and I think it comes across as original.
Is there a process of elimination for jokes that make it into the show and don't? Like, is it thumbs up, thumbs down? Is there?
Absolutely. It's like, that's why I love comedy. Yeah, I love comedy because it's so democratic. It's like either funny or it's not. It either gets a laugh or it doesn't. And there's nowhere to get there's nowhere harder to get a laugh than in a room full of comedians.
Which is antithetical to me.
Yeah. No, because
to me, people that are funny laugh easy.
Yeah, no, we laugh all the time. But the joke has to, in order for it to make it into the script, I think it has to be clearly funnier than the previous joke that was pitched. And you're also doing a thing where it has to be on story too, and on character too. So you're like calibrating according to, but sometimes truly just the funniest thing just wins out because it don't matter. It's like, is it funny? If it's that funny, then it has to go in.
That feels like the writing process on Family Guy, and how sort of all those vignettes probably got their start was there's some funny shit going on in the room. It doesn't fit the story. How are we going to get this in there? Because it's too funny to ignore. Okay. Our characters are the kind of characters that have flashbacks all the time.
Anytime somebody references Family Guy, it makes me think of the South Park episode that makes fun of Family Guy.
Love that episode. They hate. Love that episode. So and my personal opinion, and I don't want any fights, but South Park greater than Family Guy, in my personal opinion. It has such a long run. Plus they do the movies and those specials, and they're on point politically. It's I'm in the same camp. No shade to Family Guy, but I like things that say something, you know. It's why I like Always Sunny. Like, I like cultural what's it called? Oh my God. Satire, cultural satire. Thank you. This is what I'm here for. You know,
this is just what I do for a living, but I can't remember the word.
We'll drive this thing home together. Who's the funniest writer today, in your opinion?
I think one of the funniest just passed away, unfortunately. I think Jack Knight was one of my favorite stand-ups. He wrote on
You say Jack Knight?
Jack Knight, yeah. He just passed away. He wrote on Big Mouth, and he's written on a bunch of other things, but as a stand-up, I thought he was so funny. I thought he was like the next Eddie. I thought he was like the next Eddie Murphy. I thought he was that funny.
Wow.
Yeah. Aside from Jack Knight, I mean, I'm just going by stand-ups. I definitely think Janelle James is super funny as a stand-up. I think there are so many, actually. I think Aparna Nancherla is one of my favorites. She hasn't come out with a special in a long time, but I think she talks about anxiety and depression. She's just like, she's speaking my language, you know, she's really making fun of all of the darkness. And I really love Aparna's comedy. I've loved it for a long time. the funniest writers or the best writers.
Yeah.
There's so much
it's an interesting distinction, right?
There's so much good stuff out. I'm like trying to think of like a show that I've watched recently. I mean, I watched This Fool on Hulu, Chris Estrada. I think that's like one of my favorite pilots I've seen in a long time. Well written, well acted, great story. There's just so many. I don't even know. I don't even know.
Well, you gave us some homework right there.
Yeah.
Now I need to go check out This Fool. Yeah. I need to definitely check out Jack Knight, Janelle James.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And there's probably so many others, but I appreciate that. I know it's a very difficult question to answer in your position. This one might be even more challenging, unfortunately. What is a joke that the second you heard it, you said, damn, I wish I wrote that?
Oh, fuck. That's hard. Damn. I don't know. I feel like, I guess the person I was thinking about was Nate Bargatze, just because his specials are so funny. Ali Wong's specials are super funny. Michael Che is super funny. But I think it's Ricky Gervais. So Ricky Gervais has a special called, what is his special called? It's not Supernatural. It's the one that he had before that one. But he has this joke about like, who would you rather have like dinner with, anybody alive or dead? And it's like, it could be somebody that has a peanut allergy or Hitler. And he says that he'd rather have it with Hitler or whatever. And then he says, hear me out. And then he goes into this whole explanation about meeting some lady on a plane with, and her daughter has a peanut allergy and you can't eat peanuts or whatever. I think Ricky Gervais is just like one of the best storytellers. That whole special, let me see if I can find Ricky.
That's hilarious because
I'm
already thinking about what my answer would
Humanity. Be. It's called Humanity.
Humanity. All right, I'm gonna write that down.
It's called Humanity, and I think from start to finish, it's one of my favorite specials. And then he has this joke about like, because he loves dogs, and he talks about like how dogs are made in heaven, and like I'm not even saying it well, but it's just it's just really great storytelling and really great joke writing. Yeah.
All right. I've now got even more homework. I can't wait to check that out. I'm a fan of Ricky Gervais too. I listen to like the most random stuff from him. He like once a quarter, he'll get on a podcast with this guy named Sam Harris.
Okay.
And they just literally record their phone call, and it's hilarious. It's like funny. A good reason to listen to Sam Harris when Ricky Gervais is on. I mean, there are other good reasons. Okay. No shade to Sam Harris, but when he's got Ricky on, it's just Ricky being Ricky with this really smart guy who's giving him smart answers to sort of seemingly dumb questions. But the magic of Ricky is those dumb questions are very, very deep.
No way.
As you get into it. How do you deal? You mentioned anxiety and some of the other things you deal with, depression. How do you get through writer's block when you feel like you have it?
I just take care of myself. I'm not somebody who, I used to try to like write through the writer's block and write through depression, but I actually think that it is your brain telling you to take a break. It's your brain telling you I've hit a wall and I need a moment. And at least it is for me. And I used to not be able to get the hint. And now I roll with it. Now I'm like, oh, thank you, brain, for alerting me to my need to take a minute and sit down. You know what I mean? Sit the fuck down, go get a drink somewhere or don't, go hang out with friends, go do something else with your mind and with your attention, go for a walk, go hang out with your spouse, like whatever it is you need to do to like be a person and come back to the writing when you're fresh, so that you don't start to resent the writing. You don't start to resent the work. Nothing, at least I think nothing's that important. Even if you are on deadline, you're not going to be bringing your best self when you're hitting writer's block, when you're hitting that wall. Like, I don't even like to say writer's block, because I just think you're not blocked. It's just, you just need a minute. You just need to take a break and come back and be fresh, go to sleep, take a nap, like drink some water, like whatever it is you need to do to like refresh, and then come back to the page and you'll be fine.
I deeply appreciate that answer. I just was having this problem last night. I was doing some writing for one of our projects, and I had all these things on my mind. I have this calendar, and this is super nerdy, Charla, so please, judge me appropriately, but it's super nerdy. I have like life design built into my calendar, like my iCal. Mm-hmm. And at 11 o'clock at night, there's this little sort of event, and it's called Stop Work Now. Mm-hmm. Go to bed.
That's too late.
Because
11 o'clock? No,
right. It prevents me from like staying up till 2, where I get in this place where I feel guilty. Mm-hmm. And I have like the monkey mind syndrome, where I'm just like in there, like pounding away thinking, oh no, the world's going to end if I don't finish this all today. And I was sitting there last night and I was writing, and I was like, I don't have the words to say exactly. I know the theme, but I don't have the words. It's because I keep thinking about the fact that I didn't exercise today, and I'd made a promise to myself to exercise today, and I didn't keep my promise to myself. And it's getting really close to like the time where I would have to stop. Mm-hmm. And then you start to weigh the options. Like, will I write this better in the morning? Or should I do it right now? And once you just ask yourself the question, the either or question, and when you weigh it, it's like, it becomes really obvious, just exactly what you said. So I left the office, put on my running shoes, took a jog for 30 minutes, got the workout in, shower, of course.
Awesome.
Talked to folks, and went to bed.
Nice.
Woke up today, refreshed, ready to go. I know I'm going to write better.
Nice.
The world is not going to end, to your point, if you just take a little me time. But just, I would caution and just say, don't let me time turn into procrastination.
Absolutely.
Because we do tend to avoid things that bring us anxiety, stress, pain. We find all kinds of excuses why we're
right. We don't want to do work, of course. That would be too hard. But I definitely think so. I had a really bad burnout at the end of 2019, and I talk about it a lot just because I feel like I had not heard anybody really talk about it, and I didn't understand what it was. I think like, so many of us are workaholics, and we're all striving so much, and we completely ignore signals that our body is sending that you need a break. And I realized one of the most effective things to combating my burnout was taking structured, deliberate breaks. Because when I was taking a break, let's say my writer's room ended, now I have like possibly 3 to 6 months of time to myself. And I would spend that 3 to 6 months absolutely panicked about what my next job was going to be. I never had like, okay, I'm taking 1 week where I don't do anything, where I don't check email, where I don't talk to my manager and try to like, plot out the next 6 months to 2 years of my life. I'm just taking a break. And that I found has been the secret, is just deliberate, structured breaks and paying attention to when I need a break, because I think part of it is just like not trusting ourselves that we're going to work hard and like not wanting to disappoint ourselves. But whenever I have those feelings, I think back to everything I've already done. And I know that I will get back on track. I know that I will accomplish things. I know that I will get to where I want to get to, and that it'll be okay, and that I don't need to stress.
I'm curious, what are the 2 best pieces of advice you've received in your career so far, and who did they come from?
Yeah, I love this question. I think the first piece of advice that was really great came from my grandmother, and she said, remember who you are. And she said that to me when I was first going to study abroad when I was in college. And it was going to be the first time that I was very far away from home and didn't know anybody. And I just love that she said that to me. Like, I definitely know that she meant it like, don't go have sex, like don't do drugs, you know. I definitely think she meant it that way. But I take it with me into this industry because I think this industry, it's really important to remember who you are. It's really important to remember that you're much bigger than this job, than this note from an executive, than this, you know, rejection, than this fear of the unknown. Like, you're so much bigger than that. You have such a much bigger life. There's so much more to life than just this work. And I think about it a lot, especially lately. And I think the next best piece of advice, again, wasn't even particularly like industry specific. It was live below your means. It was spend less than you make, you know. That was the best. And
it seems simple, but it is difficult, especially in an industry where comparison is a killer. So omnipresent.
It's rampant.
Yeah, rampant comparison. Rampant. And it's not blaming anybody. We do it to ourselves half the time. We do. You know?
Yeah.
And I thank my dad for this. I learned that lesson really young. And I remember, so we grew up modestly, and I was going to get my first pair of like brand name shoes. It was like, I guess I was in 7th grade by the time I got my first pair of like non-buddies, right? And there was this pair of Nikes, and I just been coveting them. I've just been looking like, I want these. And it's funny because they were green, and our company colors are green and our podcast is green. But anyway, they're kind of green and white, and they were like running shoes. They were like absolutely fire. I knew that my friends wanted them and liked them too. So that's all I needed to know, right? And sure enough, Charla, I get there and they're just a little tight. And they don't have the neck size up. They're just a little tight. They don't have the neck size up. And I'm begging. I'm like, no, we got to get them. We got to get them because I already promised that I was going to come back with some shoes. And against, I think, his better judgment, could kind of see my desperation. My dad buys me the shoes. I go to school the next day, and sure enough, people do notice it, but they notice it for like an hour. Like, it wasn't a big deal. And I realized then that the comparison thing lives mostly in your mind. Like, most people aren't paying attention to you at all. And to test the theory, about a week later, I wore mismatched socks. Mm-hmm. This is like before the ankle sock revolution or whatever. It's like, so these socks went up my leg a little bit, but you could tell they were different. And not one person all school day in middle school, nonetheless, you know, like noticed that I had different socks on. That's how little people are actually paying attention to us or to yourself. And you convince yourself that everyone's watching your every move, and you think everything is about you. I'm still a little bit, I'll admit, I'm so glad I have Nick in my life because he is so disconnected from the bullshit. And I'm kind of have to be in it a little bit because I do a lot of the sort of marketing and outreach. And I take every non-follow personally. Sometimes I take every little move and I'm like, what, why? There's something behind that. There's a conspiracy there. Like, what's going on? What did I say? What did I say? What did I do? And then a lot of times it's just, there are people living their lives and not really thinking about you. That's all.
Yeah. So everybody's so deeply concerned about themselves. It is bananas. Yeah, but at least it's good that we're aware of it. You know, it's really hard not to be that way. I don't know how in the United States of America, in a capitalist, not even the US, but just like in a capitalist Western culture, how we cannot be. We have to do so much not to be.
Yeah, I agree. It takes training, it takes work, and that's why you have your wonderful school, the Working Writer School. That's WERK. as in twerking.
Work.
That's right. The Working Writer School. So I want everybody to check that out for sure. What are because you are teaching a class, I think you'd be particularly apt to answer this. What are the biggest creative and business mistakes you see newcomers making?
Yeah, that's another good one. I think first, the biggest mistake is, I mean, there are so many, but I think the two biggest ones are, number one, thinking that getting a manager is going to change your life. Mm-hmm. Maybe it happens 1% of the time, or you need a manager to get put on. So people focus on finding a manager and they don't focus on the making of the work. I'll hear about people looking for managers and they don't even have a script, or they just want to be writers and they don't have a sample. Like, I think to me, it sounds unbelievable, but that's what it is, and I mean, I was looking for a manager, but I had a web series. I had work to show, but I think a huge mistake is looking for representation when you don't have any actual work to show. You need work. You need something that represents your voice to be able to give to people. And I think it sounds super obvious, but some people don't think about it. They just think that I need a manager, I need reps, and that's how I'm going to get, staffed, or I'm going to get in a writer's room. I'm not saying that for like actors and other people, but if you are, looking to be a screenwriter, you have to have written something. And then I think the second mistake is thinking that meeting people and knowing people is more important than the work. Absolutely, you have to meet people, but you also have to make things. So it's like, I always tell people, they're like, what do I need to do? You need to meet people and you need to make things. It's both things. Because you can become a PA in a writer's room and work your way up. But eventually, at some point, someone's going to ask to see your script. So you might as well just be working on one as you're making your way through the ranks. So I would say, I think both of those lead to the same mistake, which is not recognizing that the work comes first. Like, make things, build your voice, figure out, be bad at writing for a while, like most of us, so that you can get better at it. I think those are the two biggest things, are just people's focus is not in the right place. It's on meeting people, it's on getting repped, and it's not on what it needs to be, which is getting better as a writer, like having the skills, because the skills are what are going to be the real thing that you can leverage, is your skills.
I totally agree. And speaking of bad writing, if I asked you or put you in a scenario where you had 1 month to teach someone how to get prepared for the comedic stage, what would be the first 3 things you teach them?
Get on stage ASAP all the time in as many places as you can. I remember when I was doing so much stand-up and people would come up to me and ask me how to get started as a stand-up. And I'd ask, have you been to an open mic? And they had not been to their first open mic. Oh, and wow. to me, this is and I started asking that question because I would start giving people so much advice until I realized, oh, they haven't even been to an open mic. And so it's just like putting the cart before the horse. Like, I actually don't think you know the right questions to ask. You're not even asking the right questions if you haven't gone out and just done it. So the first piece of advice is go out and do it as much as possible and fail as much as possible. And the second piece of advice is to reframe your relationship with failure. Because people don't like to fail. They don't like to be bad at things. And I am number one. I'm such a perfectionist. I don't like for anybody to know that I've ever had a bad idea. You know what I mean? Like it's actually, when you think about it and when you talk about it, it's nuts. Our obsession with being perfect.
Are you a Virgo?
No, I'm a Libra. Okay.
I think we're speaking the same language. Anyway, go ahead.
No, reframe your relationship with failure. Failure is the key to everything that you want. Like failure is what is going to show you what you need. Success is great, but failure grows you up. It grows you. And success is not a measure of growth. Success is a result of growth, you know? So it's like,
Well put.
And I think the third thing is to unfortunately write, which is the hardest part. Like, I'm so lazy. We're all so lazy. I feel like if anything, I'm like such a poster girl for like how you can be lazy and still get this work, because nobody wants to write. If you think that you're lazy, you have not seen anything yet. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm lazy, sir. It's just like, but you have to write. You need, Chris Rock he says one time, you need jokes. You need jokes. And it's true. You need jokes. You got to write. So it's just like, get up as much as possible, fail as much as possible, write as much as possible.
I love that. Thank you for recounting it for us. Everyone take heed. You've been so tremendously generous with your time. I have some speed round questions for you, and then we'll get you out of here. Mm-hmm. All right. You wrote an episode of The Last OG. Mm-hmm. Now, what people may or may not know is that each episode is named after a hip hop song. What was your episode's title, and how did you pick it?
I did not pick it.
Oh.
The showrunner or Tracy picked it. We don't. I think what's interesting is that in every writer's room that I've ever been in, the writing process is very collaborative. And even though my name is on the episode, every single person in the room touched that episode. Yeah. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. Fair point. Catch and release. Are you going to do a season 3? Are you going to develop this into a 30-minute, a 1 hour? I think you need to that's my opinion. If everybody goes out and watches Catch and Release on YouTube, you can
Clinch and
I'm sorry, Clinch and Release. I'm saying that's Catch and Release. Clinch. Yeah. Clinch is actually so much funnier and better. Yeah. Clinch and Release season 3. Is it going to happen, or are you going to do Clinch and Release the show? How are you moving forward with this? Because I think it deserves it.
I actually sold this show. It was the first thing that I ever sold years ago, like when I first entered the industry. Yeah, I sold it years ago. I was absolutely not ready. I did not know what it was, as a half hour. I don't think I was so green. I don't think I had the right reps to really, mentor me and shepherd me and help me get it to that point. So that ship has kind of sailed, I don't know if there's ever a revival of it in terms of like a half hour.
Have they done anything with it?
I wrote a pilot and it got passed on. Yeah. So I sold it. I wrote a pilot and they passed on it, and which was a super valuable experience for all the reasons that I just said, which was looking back, I didn't have the right team. I didn't have the right mentorship, and I didn't have the skills yet, frankly, to really know what that show was and to develop it into a half hour. I was so new as a writer. I couldn't believe I sold it. Truly, it was just, I think, having a proof of concept and having a clear voice and having a point of view. I think that is, and being confident in the room, because I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. I was so brand spanking new. It was super fun, and a fantastic, spectacular failure, and very necessary.
That's fascinating. I can't wait. And hopefully you'll honor me by doing a round 2 sometime in the future.
Absolutely.
We dig into that a little bit more. I think that'd be very useful for this audience. Do you have any feelings on sort of the Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan phenomenon of the last 3 or 4 years, just in the social landscape? And
I mean, I will say in a nutshell, I hate these niggas. These niggas, I think, are... I think Dave Chappelle specifically, you know what I mean? Nobody gives a shit about what I think about Dave Chappelle, but what I think is that I think that he's like sucking up all the air in the room. His voice is the loudest at a time when I don't necessarily think he is right. I thought that his bit about trans people in his most controversial special was so tone deaf and not compassionate and just, again, old timey. That's what I think about Dave Chappelle. I think I would love for him to be quiet, but he's very rich and Netflix apparently is fully behind him. So,
right.
I don't know if my voice matters in that, but I definitely think it's time for a new voices. I think he's not in step with what we need right now, which is acceptance, which is compassion, which is understanding, but that's where I'm at. And Joe Rogan, I don't listen to him that much. I will be real. I do enjoy his interviews. Like, he'll have people on there that I'll listen to this interview. I don't know I have not followed him enough. Like, I feel like I only know about him because he's become such a cultural phenomenon. Like, I don't know anything about his comedy. I never really listened to the show, like, unless like an episode goes viral, then I'll usually listen to that episode. So I don't know enough about what he's done to really speak on it. But Dave Chappelle, I'm a big fan. I came up on Dave Chappelle. So, I mean, listening to him and being influenced by him. So I have more stakes in Dave Chappelle. Like, what Dave Chappelle does matters more to me.
I think in general, it matters more to comedy as well, because I think there are a troupe of gang of comedians that are together that are saying, we are like the last bastion, the front line against, for freedom of speech. And once whatever powers that be topple us comedians, it's all over for everything. So they become very righteous about it.
They have become very righteous, but the thing is, they're not even I think that they're not aware of how what they're saying is cloaked in homophobia, especially amongst Black men. There is homophobia. And I'm like, if we don't address the fact that there is a fragment of Black men who are very homophobic and who fear trans women, you know what I mean? And it's just, or feel threatened by it or feel whatever by it, whatever is going on, we got to address that first before we address the fact that, any kind of freedom of speech is being, and I think it's both things. I absolutely think as a comedian that we need to be able to say things. We need to be able to have open conversations, but at the same time, don't cloak your homophobia in I'm being oppressed or whatever the fuck. It's just like, okay, you hate trans. I mean, that's how that bit came across, as if you don't see these people as human, you don't see these people as equal. I don't think that they're the same thing.
Absolutely. And you see that this medium we're on now, podcasting, has become a launch pad for new ideas and voices, specifically in comedy. It seems like every comedian has a podcast. Are you going to start a podcast in the future? Any plans?
Yeah, I have so many plans. I had a podcast called The Secret Lives of Black Women that I co-hosted with my friend, Lauren Domino. That was at Stitcher for 3 seasons. I absolutely loved doing that podcast. Stitcher ended up dropping our podcast, and I talked very openly about things getting bought and sold, not getting greenlit, because that is the process, and then, my friend Lover, she doesn't want to be on the microphone, which I totally understand. So I've just been thinking about other podcasts that I could do. I had another podcast in development at NPR that I decided that I didn't want to go forward with because it was during my burnout. And I realized I was just like working on fumes and I should just stop for a bit and be still. And now I'm just like, I'm thinking about other podcasts and what I could do. So I have ideas and things in the works. I'm not sure when they will happen, but it's out there.
I can't believe you have a friend named Lover, and I also Lauren. I thought you said Lover. I was like, I can't believe that, because I actually have a friend named Lover, and it's a guy, not a girl.
That's ridiculous.
Like, well, his last name is High too. So that's H-I-G-H. So his name is Lover High.
That doesn't make any sense.
And I played basketball with him, and so you have to always grunt on the court, get your man Lover or whatever. Like, to say his name, it's like that old Cedric the Entertainer joke, where I can't be calling you delicious. I'm a grown ass man. So he puts us in a quandary, but I've known him for 20 years. Very, very nice guy. If you're listening to this, lover, I do love you. You're awesome guy and probably a wonderful lover as well. This conversation has been wonderful.
Wonderful. Absolutely.
Charla, this has been just a blast. And if you do go back into the podcasting space, please let me know. I would love to just know what's going on, be a part of it if I can. And in that spirit, can you let this audience know where they can find you on social media, find you on the internet, where they can see some of your work, any of that stuff?
Absolutely. My only social media right now is YouTube, Charla Lauriston at YouTube. I also have a Pinterest account for The Working Writer. I'm really trying to figure out what role does social media play in my life right now, but that is where you can find me. And of course I have charlalauriston.com if you want to go on there. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I subscribe to your YouTube page. I recommend everyone else do it. And remember, you can see so much of her stand-up, her web series that she sold her pilot for, Clinch and Release on YouTube. It's all there. So everybody, please go do that. And I think we will end on this. You spent a little bit of time in politics. You worked for Senator Kristen Gillibrand's office. And I'm just curious, what was it that kept that career path from taking hold for you? And would you ever consider going back into politics? You're a very smart person, very capable.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, I am a politics junkie. I found that the office, working in a political office, just wasn't the best place for my voice. It wasn't the best place for my sensibilities. I find politics in the United States to be a hilarious joke. And I just was I might as well go do comedy because I find that I have a much bigger voice in comedy than I ever had. And I was low level. I was right out of college, I was an administrative assistant kind of thing. But yeah, I just found that politics is just a lot of administrative work. It's a lot of red tape. It's a lot of posturing. It's a lot of politics.
Right.
And I was just I'd rather just be doing something creative, something fun.
Well, we're all the better for that decision. And until the aforementioned round 2, I wish you the best of luck. I know you're hanging out in LA now. Keep killing it out there. Keep doing your damn thing. And this has been just an absolute pleasure. And I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thanks, Chris. Ditto. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. And everyone in the audience, be sure to go to bonsai.film to learn more about what we're doing, and make sure to go to all the places Charla mentioned earlier to see her work, especially on YouTube and on Pinterest. And you can catch up with her and take her class at the Working Writer School as well. Go do that if you're smart. Charla, I'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right. Peace.
Hey, gang. One more thing before you go. I want to talk to you about Indie Insights. Indie Insights is our bi-weekly newsletter and love note to the film industry, movies, and the creatives that make them, not to mention you, our esteemed listeners. Inside, you'll find curated industry trends, articles, exclusive commentary, and underappreciated films from filmmakers like you worldwide. And the best part is that it's completely free. So, join today at www.bonsai.film. It just takes a few seconds, and once you sign up, you'll get the very next newsletter. It's that simple. Go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights, our bi-weekly newsletter, and join a network of film creatives like yourself. And don't worry, we'll never sell your information or spam you with a bunch of nonsense emails, just the bi-weekly film industry goodness you need. And if you ever tire of Indie Insights, we hope not, but if you do, simply unsubscribe. No gimmicks, no games. So, one more time, go to www.bonsai.film to get Indie Insights for free. And thank you for listening.